Well, here we are today, and I am rating the Rise of Nations units. So let's just get started with anti-aircraft. Um, Not a very good unit. Honestly, you don't use this very much unless the enemy has aircraft and you can't afford fighters. And most of the time, people don't use aircraft. So honestly, I'm gonna have to put this in worst. It's not very good. Next, we got artillery. What do you think this is going to go? And extremely good, obviously. These things are absolutely broken. Kill an entire army of these things. Absolutely destruction. Attackers, pretty good. I wouldn't say they're as good as artillery. Because, artillery has this you can just protect it really easily against fighters, which can just get absolutely destroyed by fighters. Attackers get destroyed by fighters. I would say they're good. But really, I think artillery is just a lot more flexible, and its upgradability makes it a lot better than attackers. Battleships, they're good. I wouldn't say they're great. They're good. I mean, they're good at destroying a lot of ships. They're pretty much the staple of your navy. Yeah, they're good. There's nothing super amazing about them, but they're just good in general. They can just destroy other ships. They melt any other surface ship. Just don't get them sunk by a submarine, and they'll live. Bombers. These are good, like really good. These probably go extremely good. I don't personally use these that often, but when they are used correctly, these things absolutely just rip apart other people's countries. I mean, you can absolutely destroy a country with bombers. So these are going extremely good. They're pretty broken, but yeah, very good unit. Aircraft carriers. Obviously, these are OP. They have the most OP range in history. They can absolutely melt armies. I mean, how is this not the best? Honestly, I want to put this above bombers, but behind artillery, because artillery is really just a lot cheaper, and our aircraft carriers are more flexible. But aircraft carriers definitely second place. These things are just destruction. Destroyers. Let's be honest, no one would really use these if there was not submarines. People would just use battleships. Just pretty much a weaker battleship, and it's average. I mean, these are good for weak nations who want a small navy, but really, these are just kind of average. If you want to fight in our nation, you're going to need them because of submarines, but that's the only reason you're really going to want them anyway. If submarines didn't exist, everyone would just spam battleships. So, Fighters, I mean, if we're being honest, you're not going to use these unless the enemy has aircraft. So, they're better anti-aircraft, but they're not good. They're kind of useless, actually. Most other players are not going to use planes, so these are pretty useless. These fighters are only made when you start using planes, so that's just evident that these are kind of useless. Frigates, these are garbo. I mean, the only reason you would use this if you're a weak nation. There's no reason to use frigates. They're trash. They're awful. Well, I don't understand why you would use these, but yeah, they're okay. Tanks are interesting. I mean, they're good. They're very good early game. They're not as good late game, but they're still very good in my opinion. Um, Honestly, I don't have too much to say about tanks. I would just say they're good. Probably better than the battleship, and probably better than the attacker. Actually, attacker's probably the worst here. Actually, no, attacker's in the middle. I would say tanks are probably the best. Almost extremely good, but I wouldn't consider them extremely good. I actually don't know what this is. What is this? I don't know what this is. Let's see. No, let's do this last. I guess it's your capital. I don't really know. Infantry. Infantry is good. It's interesting. It really depends what you prefer. This is such a polarizing issue in Ron. It's always the question of, do you prefer tanks or do you prefer infantry? Infantry, in my opinion, is more flexible because it can go over terrain very quickly. But there's a lot of people who defend tanks and love tanks. Personally, I do prefer infantry over tanks, but tanks are OP early game. So honestly, I'm just gonna put this slightly above a tanks because I prefer it. But tanks, don't underestimate tanks; they're very good. Nukes, honestly, average. Nukes are just so hard to get. Like, if you could get them easily, these would be extremely good. But because they're so hard to get, there's so much investment required to get these. They're not super good. They're average because they're OP, right? But they're just not good unless you're overly rich and it's late game. So, Submarines. They have one use, which is to sink infantry and sink aircraft carriers and battleships, usually. I like them, but they're not, like, amazing. I would say they're good. They're not as good as a battleship, though. They're good. Like, they're very good for sinking infantry. But I don't know what else their purpose is besides sinking capital ships, which are easily defended by destroyers. I mean, they're good. I'll actually put them above battleships because they're sneaky. That's really all I have to say about submarines, though. Now, I don't know what this is supposed to be. What units have we not gone over? I'm pretty sure this is all of them, right? Nukes, destroyer, fighter, anti. We're not missing anything. I'm just guessing this is capital. No, forts? No, this is forts. Oh, forts. Okay, forts. Yeah, forts are pretty freaking good. I want to be honest. This isn't really much of a unit as much as it is a building, but it's good. So forts. Forts are OP as a weak nation. They are very, very good. Like, these will literally save you. So, with that in mind, I'm actually going to put these in extremely good. Also, they got a buff that helps them defend against nukes. These are literally the counter to the nukes now. They're not like a godsend. They're not going to completely protect your city, but they help a ton. So, with that in mind, I'm going to put them in extremely good. They're OP against other infantry and stuff. They just are really good for defending. So, yeah, I'll put forts all the way up here. Very, very OP. So, yeah, with that in mind, this is my Rise of Nations unit tier list. Tell me what you think's the best and worst. But, yeah, I'm going to head out now. So, yeah, see ya.